Welcome, curious minds, to the deep dive. Have you ever walked away from a conversation feeling like, you left something significant on the table? Or maybe you found yourself tangled in a tense exchange, just wishing you had the right words, the ones to gently but powerfully turn things around.
Absolutely. That feeling of, if only I had said.
Exactly. Well, today we're not just unlocking secrets, we're really rethinking the whole nature of influence. We're moving way beyond simple persuasion to a really profound understanding of how humans interact.
Yeah, digging deeper.
We're embarking on a fascinating deep dive into this, transformative approach to negotiation. It's drawn directly from the incredible, often quite counterintuitive insights of an FBI veteran.
Right, someone who's tested this in the highest stakes imaginable.
Totally. Our source material is the groundbreaking book, Never Split the Difference. Even the title tells you it's going to flip conventional negotiation wisdom right on its head.
It really does.
It promises a completely new way of thinking about how to get what you want. And not by, overpowering people, but by truly understanding them.
That's the key shift right there.
Yeah.
Understanding first.
So our mission today, what are we trying to do for you, the listener?
Well, our mission is really to equip you with practical tools. Tools grounded in psychology, mind you, that can help you navigate pretty much any high-stakes conversation.
High stakes like?
Oh, everything from confidently demanding that raise you deserve to, calming down a heated family discussion, or even, yes, getting your kid to bed on time without a major battle.
The toughest negotiation of all sometimes.
You know it. So we're going to unpack why these techniques actually work, how they were forged in these, life and death situations.
Right, the crucible.
Exactly. And maybe most importantly, how you can start using them in your everyday life to get better outcomes, consistently, but also while strengthening your relationships. This isn't about winning in a zero-sum way.
No.
It's about connecting, influencing, and finding solutions that genuinely work for everyone involved.
Okay, so get ready for a story. It begins not in some polished corporate boardroom.
No mahogany tables here.
Not at all. It starts with a former Kansas City beat cop, a guy who worked his way up to become an FBI international hostage negotiator.
Quite the journey.
And the story kicks off with him facing off against two really formidable opponents, Harvard Law School negotiation professors, in a mock hostage situation, no less.
Wow, talk about pressure.
And the scenario, his own son is on the line. It's this incredible clash of worlds, right?
Sure.
The street-smart, experience-driven FBI way versus the academic, theoretical Harvard approach.
The practical versus the theoretical.
Yeah. And this moment, it's described so vividly in the book, it wasn't just a role play. It was the spark. It launched the author's whole quest to understand why his, quote, meathead techniques, these raw, practical approaches, worked so damn well. And why Harvard's really elegant rational theories sometimes just fell flat when the stakes were, truly existential.
When things got real.
Okay, let's really dig into this foundational clash. So the author, Chris Voss, FBI lead international kidnapping negotiator, he finds himself in this super intense role play.
Right.
The setup itself was designed to push him. A simulated phone call. The kidnappers say, they've got your son Voss. Give us $1 million or he dies.
Chilling. Even simulated.
And who's across the table? Robert Mnookin and Gabriella Bloom, titans of Harvard's negotiation world.
The heavy hitters.
Yeah, and Voss admits feeling intimidated. He says he felt like just a street cop up against people with fancy degrees and a lifetime of negotiating expertise.
You can imagine.
So for him, this wasn't just academic. It was a real test of his skills in a scenario meant to feel as real, as high stakes as possible.
And what's really fascinating here is just how different their methods were. Harvard's approach, right, it's deeply rooted in game theory, legal thinking.
Very analytical.
Totally. It focuses heavily on concepts like Bédinet, your best alternative to a negotiated agreement, and Zabé, the zone of possible agreement.
Right, the rational stuff.
It's all about rational actors carefully maximizing their position, using logic, data, trying to find that optimal outcome. It's almost mathematical.
Okay.
But the FBI's techniques, they were, as the book says, products of experiential learning, forged in the heat of actual hostage situations where, and this is stark, if they didn't work, someone died.
Wow. That's immediate feedback.
Exactly. It was iterative, urgent, trial and error, driven by sheer necessity, not intellectual theory. Effectiveness was measured in lives saved, period.
And that difference, that kind of visceral, practical versus theoretical gap, That's what pulled Voss towards Harvard, wasn't it?
Yeah, precisely. He wasn't there just to prove his methods were better. His big question was why? Why did these street-tested techniques born from extreme pressure actually work?
And crucially.
And could they work with, normal humans, your boss, your partner, your kids?
Right.
Or were they just for dealing with mercenaries and terrorists?
Right. Could you translate that battlefield knowledge?
Exactly. He wanted to bridge that gap between gut instinct, urgent action, and something more systematic, more universally understood. He needed to articulate the why behind what he knew worked.
Which brings us right to this fundamental question. What was missing from that purely rational view of negotiation that Harvard, and let's be honest, a lot of traditional business thinking really embraced?
Yeah, what's the gap? The book points straight to the incredible work of economist Amos Tversky and psychologist Daniel Kahneman, the founders of behavioral economics.
Kahneman, thinking fast and slow.
That's the one. They basically blew up the whole idea of humans as purely rational actors.
Yeah.
They proved, through tons of research, that we are actually, as the book puts it, very irrational beasts.
Huh. Love that.
And they showed that feeling isn't just like static noise in the background. Feeling is a form of thinking. Our emotions are integral to how we make decisions.
Not separate from logic, but part of it.
Completely. And to ignore that, like many traditional models did, is to miss something fundamental about how people operate, especially when they're under any kind of pressure.
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting for, everyday life. Kahneman and Tversky identified over 150 of these things called cognitive biases.
Mental shortcuts.
Right. Unconscious brain processes, shortcuts that systematically twist how we see things, how we judge things, how we make choices.
And we all have them.
Totally. Think about the framing effect. How you present a choice drastically changes how people react, right? People will often take more risks to avoid a loss than to achieve the same gain.
Classic example.
Or prospect theory. It explains why we sometimes take crazy risks when facing uncertain losses, but we want certainty when it comes to games. Our relationship with risk is weird.
Definitely not always logical.
And the big one, loss aversion. Statistically, we are way more motivated to avoid losing something than we are to gain something of equal value.
That's a powerful one in negotiation.
Absolutely. Framing a price increase as preventing future service decline works better than just saying giving you more value. These aren't just terms in a textbook. They're the invisible strings pulling at our decisions and our counterparts' decisions every single day. Understanding them, that's a superpower.
It really is. And if you connect this back to negotiation, trying to negotiate based only on what the book calls System 2, thinking that's the slow, logical, rational part of our brain,
Right.
without understanding the System 1 stuff, are fast, emotional, intuitive gut reactions.
Right.
It's like, and I love this analogy from the book, trying to make an omelet without first knowing how to crack an egg.
Perfect. You're missing the key ingredient.
Exactly. You can build the most logical argument ever, perfect data, flawless reasoning. But if you're not hitting those underlying emotional drivers, those cognitive biases that are actually running the show for the other person,
Your argument just falls flat.
it's built on sand.
Yeah.
And that explains why those purely rational models often fail spectacularly in the real world, where emotions and hidden motives are king.
And this wasn't just theoretical failure. This realization hit home hard after events like the disastrous sieges at Ruby Ridge in '92 and Waco in '93.
Tragic examples.
After those terrible outcomes, it was blindingly obvious that the traditional rational problem-solving models, even really influential ones like getting to yes, which Voss is clear offers powerful strategies like BATNA.
It has its place.
But those models just didn't work with people who, as he bluntly puts it, think he's the Messiah. How do you find a rational win-win with someone whose entire belief system is fundamentally different, maybe even sees you as the enemy?
You can't just reason them out of it.
Right. The traditional methods couldn't bridge that chasm, and it led to tragedy. It was painfully clear they needed a new approach, fast.
So facing this critical gap, the FBI made a really profound shift. They started looking towards new and old therapeutic techniques from counseling, drawing ideas from fields that really prioritize building relationships and demonstrating genuine understanding.
Interesting. So looking at therapy.
Yeah. And the core premise they landed on, it sounds almost deceptively simple, but it's incredibly powerful. People want to be understood and accepted.
It's basic human need, right?
Absolutely primal. And listening, the book hammers this home, is the cheapest yet most effective concession we can make. It costs nothing tangible, but it can unlock everything in terms of trust, cooperation.
It's not about being nice or soft, though.
Not at all. It's about actively engaging with the other side's reality, their perspective, however different or even disturbing it might seem. Truly trying to see the world through their eyes.
And the science backs this up strongly, right? Like psychotherapy research.
Exactly. Research consistently shows that when people genuinely feel heard, something amazing happens. They start listening to themselves more clearly, evaluating their own thoughts and feelings more openly.
Huh. Like self-reflection triggered by being heard.
Precisely. And they become less defensive, less oppositional, more willing to hear other points of view. It guides them to a calmer, more logical state where they can actually solve problems instead of just reacting emotionally.
Okay.
So this key insight, born from crisis but backed by science, led to the absolute core concept of the book, tactical empathy.
Tactical empathy. Not just empathy, but tactical empathy.
Right. And it's far from passive. Voss calls it listening as a martial art. It's this dynamic balance between the subtle skills of emotional intelligence and the assertive, strategic skills of influence.
Listening as a martial art. I like that.
The goal is to gain deep access to the other person's mind. It is, he says, the most active thing you can do. So while the Ivy League was teaching math and game theory,
The FBI was mastering empathy.
driven by pure necessity. And, as Voss proudly states, our way worked. It's an active, strategic use of understanding. Listening isn't weakness, it's your most powerful weapon.
Okay, so tactical empathy is the guiding philosophy, but how did they actually turn this deep understanding of irrationality, of the need to be understood, into concrete, practical steps anyone can learn?
Yeah, how do you operationalize it?
Right. What does this mean for you, the listener, in your everyday talks, whether it's a big work meeting or just chatting with your neighbor?
Well, the very first step to mastering this is getting beyond your own assumptions.
Crucial first step.
Good negotiators, they prepare for surprises. Great negotiators, they don't just react, they actively aim to reveal those surprises.
They hunt for the unknown.
Exactly. You should hold multiple hypotheses about the situation, about what the other person really wants, about all sorts of things, and use the negotiation itself as a process of discovery. Test those ideas. Gather info.
Be curious.
Yeah. And interestingly, smart people often stumble here. They're so confident in their own analysis, they think they have nothing left to discover. They blind themselves.
The smartest person in the room trap.
Totally. It's about curiosity, not being certain you're right.
And this whole process of discovery absolutely relies on listening, which sounds easy, but it's profoundly difficult.
Harder than it looks. The FBI learned. They literally needed teams of people just to listen effectively during a crisis. Because we're all easily distracted. We do selective listening, hearing only what confirms our beliefs.
Confirmation bias.
Exactly. And maybe the biggest block is our own internal voice, that state of schizophrenia, as the book calls it, where everyone's just listening to themselves, planning the rebuttal, instead of actually hearing the other person.
Like having two internal monologues instead of a dialogue.
Precisely. So how do you fight that?
Well, the first practical rule is super simple, maybe deceptively so. Slow it down.
Patience.
Yeah. Rushing is one of the most common mistakes. It just kills rapport and trust because people feel unheard, disrespected. If someone's talking really fast at you, you feel pressured, right?
Instantly defensive.
But time is a tool. As the book says, if someone is talking, they're not shooting. Slowing down calms things, creates space for real understanding, and lets vital information surface that would otherwise stay hidden.
Gives things room to breathe.
What really stands out here, too, and is often missed, is the sheer power of your voice.
Tone is huge.
The book identifies three main tones. First, the assertive voice signals dominance, usually best avoided because it just makes people push back.
Invites conflict.
Second, the positive, playful voice. Good for collaboration, being flexible, best used with a genuine smile. Makes things lighter.
Builds a rapport.
And third, the most potent one, strategically. The late-night FM DJ voice.
Oh, yes, the DJ voice.
This voice is deep, soft, slow, and reassuring. It's less about what you say and more about how you are, your whole demeanor, your delivery.
It conveys calm control.
Exactly, I'm in control.
Yeah.
Mostly through a downward inflection at the end of sentences.
Yeah.
That signals certainty, finality. Unlike an upward inflection, which sounds like a question and invites challenge.
Right, the difference between this is the price and this is the price.
Perfect example. Voss used this in the Chris Watts bank robbery. Watts was hanging up on the previous negotiator. Voss comes on with this calm DJ voice, and Watts immediately notices. Cuts him off, asking, "Hey, what happened to Joe?" That soothing, controlled voice was key to calming the whole situation down. getting control of the conversation. It shows how much nonverbals matter.
The delivery is as important as the content.
Okay, building on voice, one of the simplest yet almost weirdly effective techniques is mirroring, or isopraxism is a technical term.
Sounds complicated, but isn't.
Not at all. It's basically imitation. You repeat the last 1 to 3 critical words someone just said. Seems too simple, right? But the results are amazing.
Little verbal echo.
Exactly. And the psychology behind it is profound. We fear what's different and are drawn to what's similar.
The core of rapport.
So mirroring subtly signals similarity. It tells the other person's subconscious, hey, you and I were alike. And that builds rapport, builds trust without them even realizing it.
It's often nonverbal, like couples walking in step.
Right.
But here, it's verbal, designed to get them to elaborate without feeling like they're being grilled. It's like saying, tell me more about that, without asking a direct question.
And the results are stunning. Like a Jedi mind trick, the book calls it. There was that study with waiters.
Oh, yeah, the tip study.
Waiters who just mirrored the customer's order back earned 70% more in tips than those who just said, great, or coming right up.
70%, just for repeating a few words.
Incredible. And in the Chris Watts robbery, Voss used it brilliantly. Watts mentions his driver. Voss just mirrors calmly, we chased your driver away.
Just echoes it back.
And Watts just vomited information revealing this accomplice the FBI didn't even know about. That simple mirror disarmed him, opened the floodgates.
Wow. So how do you actually do it effectively?
Well, the book gives a great 4-step process for confronting without being confrontational.
Okay.
Step 1, use that late-night FM DJ voice. Calm, slow. Step 2, start with something disarming like, I'm sorry. Step 3, mirror the last few critical words. Step 4, silence. At least 4 seconds. Let the mirror do its work.
That silence is key, isn't it? It gives them space to fill.
Totally. The goal of the mirror is often just, please help me understand. You get clarity without making them defensive.
Like that example with the student and her boss.
Oh, brilliant example. The drive-by boss who just blurts out, let's make 2 copies of all the paperwork, thousands of documents.
Nightmare.
So the student calmly uses the technique. DJ voice, I'm sorry, 2 copies. Then silence.
What's the boss think?
Exactly. The boss pauses, reflects, and then says, actually, just make 2 digital backups. Saved hours, maybe days, of pointless work with 1 simple mirror.
Shows how effective that subtle nudge can be.
Which leads us right into tactical empathy itself, the cornerstone. It means actively thinking from their point of view, really trying to figure out what's driving them, how they see the world.
It's about understanding their perspective, their feelings.
Crucially, it's not about agreeing with them or just being superficially nice. As Voss says, empathy is why the 3 fugitives came out after 6 hours of my late-night DJ voice in that Harlem standoff.
Because they finally felt understood.
Right, it underlines that idea.
Yeah.
The best way to win isn't to fight, but to understand your opponent so well, they basically join your side.
So how do you apply tactical empathy? That's where labeling comes in.
Labeling. Okay, what's that?
It's basically validating someone's emotion by acknowledging it. Giving your feeling a name.
Like in that Harlem standoff.
Exactly. Voss and his team couldn't even see the guys inside, but they knew fear was driving them. Fear of getting killed, fear of jail. So they just labeled it directly.
What did they say?
Simple stuff, like, it looks like you don't want to come out. It seems like you worry that if you open the door, we'll come in with guns blazing. It looks like you don't want to go back to jail.
Just naming the obvious fears, no judgment.
Precisely. Naming the emotion.
So why does just naming an emotion work so powerfully?
Well, the book points to some cool brain science. UCLA's Matthew Lieberman did studies using fMRI scans. He showed people pictures of faces with strong emotions. The amygdala, the brain's fear center, lit up like crazy. But here's the kicker. When he asked people to label the emotion they saw,
To put a word to it.
yeah, apply a rational word to that fear or anger, the brain activity actually shifted away from the emotional amygdala and moved to the prefrontal cortex, the part involved in rational thought and impulse control.
Wow. So naming the feeling literally calms the brain down.
It disrupts its raw intensity. It helps neutralize the negative and reinforce the positive. It moves the person from pure emotional reaction towards a calmer, more logical state where they can actually think and engage.
Like shining a light on the monster under the bed makes it less scary.
Great analogy. Exactly that.
So to do this effectively, you first have to spot the emotion.
Absolutely. You got to detect their emotional state. The book talks about listening to their words, music, and dance, the actual words they use, their tone of voice, the music, and their body language, the dance.
Words, music, and dance. I like that.
Once you think you've got a handle on the emotion, you throw out the label. It seems like you're frustrated, or it sounds like you feel unappreciated. And then the crucial step.
Silence.
Silence.
Yeah.
Be quiet and listen. Let the label land. Give them space to respond, to confirm or deny it. Almost always they'll reveal more.
And they don't notice you're labeling them.
The book says people never even notice.
Yeah.
They just respond because the label invites them to elaborate on their inner world. It's where you get incredibly valuable, unfiltered insights.
Okay, there's also an extension of this called the accusation audit. Sounds intense.
It is, and it feels really counterintuitive at first. It means proactively listing every terrible thing your counterpart could say about you.
Yeah.
And saying it first.
Whoa, like airing your own dirty laundry.
Kind of. Like before giving tough feedback, you might say, I don't want this to sound harsh, or you might think I'm being an asshole here, but...
Like defense lawyers taking the sting out by mentioning weaknesses in their case first?
Exactly that principle.
Yeah.
By disarming the potential attacks before they happen, you build trust and create space for a real conversation. It sounds weird, but it works.
Why is it so hard for people?
Because it feels really self-deprecating, almost weak. But it's incredibly disarming. It takes all the ammo away from them.
Is there an example in the book?
Oh, a brilliant one. Anna, securing a $1 million government contract. Her firm's relationship with their partner, ABC Corp., was really sour. ABC thought they were being pushed out.
Okay, tense situation.
So Anna and her partner prepped by listing every negative thing ABC could possibly think about them. Then, in the meeting, Anna just laid it all out up front.
What did she say?
Things like, we understand we brought you on board expecting you'd lead this. You may feel like we've treated you unfairly, that we changed the deal. We acknowledge you believe you were promised this work.
Not apologizing, just acknowledging their perspective.
Exactly. It created this instant zone of empathy. ABC dropped their defenses, revealed their real fears, and they worked it out, securing the contract. Naming the negativity diffused it immediately.
Wow. Okay, so that's labeling and audits. Now let's shift gears a bit. We're usually taught to fear no and always push for yes.
The classic sales mantra, right? Always be closing. Always get to yes.
But the book argues this is totally backward. Yes, Voss says, can often be meaningless, just a counterfeit way to get you off their back.
Yes, superficial agreement with no real commitment behind it.
Whereas no, he argues, is pure gold. It's often the start of the real negotiation, not the end.
Because it shows they're actually engaged.
Exactly. And no feels safe to people. It maintains the status quo, and crucially, it gives them a sense of control.
That feeling of autonomy.
Right. Humans have this deep need for autonomy. So when you give someone permission to say no, when you give them the right to veto, paradoxically, the whole environment becomes more constructive. They relax because they know they can opt out.
You're not trying to trap them into a...
Precisely. It calms emotions and lets them genuinely consider things.
Voss even had his own journey with no, didn't he?
Yeah, with Amy Bondurant, who kept telling him no when he wanted to be an FBI hostage negotiator. He realized later each no wasn't a dead end, it was a gateway to yes.
How so?
Each no made him pause, rethink, pivot, and eventually led him to the one yes that mattered, volunteering at a suicide hotline. That step, forced by accepting her no, was the practical experience that actually started him on the path.
So no forced creativity.
Exactly. And when someone tells you no, the book says it almost never means it's over.
What does it usually mean then?
It usually means something like, I'm not ready yet, you're making me uncomfortable, I don't get it, I can't afford it, I want something different, or I need more info.
Okay, so it's a signal, not a stop sign.
Right. So you pause respectfully and then follow up with solution-focused questions like, what about this doesn't work for you? Or what would you need to make it work?
Puts the ball back in their court, gently.
Yeah, it lets you persuade them within their world. You guide them to discover your goal as their own instead of trying to force it on them.
Like that story about Daryl the cabbie at the helpline.
Perfect example of counterfeit yes. Daryl kept saying yes to Voss's advice, but never did anything. Voss realized the conversation was about his ego needing agreement, not about Daryl actually buying in.
Real change needs ownership.
Exactly. Whether it's business or personal life, the other person has to feel like the solution is theirs.
And there's that tactical email using no, right?
Oh, the no-oriented email.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Just asking something like, have you given up on this project?
Plays on loss aversion, doesn't it?
Totally. People hate losing things, even projects. By implying you might be walking away or the project is dying, it forces a response. It's direct, but wrapped in the safety of no, giving them control while prompting action. Often gets a super quick reply.
Clever. So if no is gold,
Then the sweetest two words in negotiation are not yes. They are. That's right.
that's right. Why those specific words?
Because, that's right, signals true understanding, a real breakthrough. It means the other person feels you genuinely understand her dreams and feelings. They feel totally heard and validated.
Which opens the door for change.
Exactly. Compare that to, you're right. The book says you're right is often a disaster.
Why? It sounds positive.
It's often just polite intellectual agreement without any real ownership, like Voss's son Brandon saying you're right to his football coach's advice,
Yeah.
but never changing how he played.
Ah, so that's right. Means they own it. You're right is just getting you to shut up.
Pretty much. So how do you get to, that's right, through a good summary?
What makes a summary good in this context?
It's a mix of paraphrasing, repeating what they said in your own words, and labeling, acknowledging the emotions behind what they said.
Okay, facts and feelings.
You listen intensely, capture their whole world according to them, and repeat it back fully, completely. It shows such deep understanding that it builds this incredible foundation for influence. It's saying, I really truly get you.
Is there a big example of this?
The breakthrough with Abu Sabaya, that violent Philippine rebel leader during the Jeffrey Schilling kidnapping. Huge example.
That happened there.
4 months of stalemate. Sabaya demanded $10 million in war damages. Wouldn't budge. Then the FBI negotiator Benji tried a full summary.
Summarize what?
All of Sabaya's stated grievances, 500 years of oppression, specific war damages, fishing rights, everything. Laid it all out.
And Sabaya's reaction.
Silence. For almost a full minute. Then finally he says, that's right.
Wow.
And from that exact moment, the $10 million demand vanished. Never mentioned again. Schilling eventually escaped. That's right, fundamentally shifted the entire negotiation.
Just through demonstrating understanding. Incredible.
And it works in less extreme situations too, right?
Oh, absolutely. The book mentions a salesperson closing a deal with a skeptical doctor just by summarizing the doctor's passion for treating patients. That's right. Doctor dropped his guard. And that Korean MBA student who wanted a job transfer. He got it by summarizing his ex-boss's real needing an ally back at HQ. Boss said, that's right, and helped him get the transfer. It's about seeing their world and letting them know you see it.
Truly seeing their underlying motivations. Okay, let's move to creating control subtly. After the disastrous Dos Palmas kidnapping,
Yeah, real train wreck, as Voss calls it.
he learned a critical lesson. Successful negotiation involved getting your counterpart to do the work for you and suggest your solution himself.
Shifting the burden.
Yeah, giving them the illusion of control while you, in fact, were the one defining the conversation. Not through demands, but through questions.
Which leads to calibrated questions.
Exactly. These mostly start with how or what. Rarely why, because why often sounds accusatory, right? Why did you do that? Puts people on defense.
Unless you frame it very carefully, yeah.
So how and what questions, they don't have a target like statements do. You can't easily attack a how question. Instead, they make your counterpart pause, think, and use their brain power to solve your problem or the problem you frame.
Brings it into collaborative problem solving, even if you have different goals, like asking, how can we make this work?
Right. Remember the Ecuador kidnapping of Jose? The captors wanted $5 million. The FBI's new strategy, learned from Dos Palmas, was just repeatedly asking calibrated questions. How do we know Jose is okay? How are we supposed to pay until we know Jose is okay?
Gentle, deferential, but persistent.
Totally. It stalled for time, forced the kidnappers to keep talking amongst themselves, trying to figure out how to answer these reasonable questions. The constant mental effort wore down the guard.
And Jose escaped.
Exactly. Shows how these questions can shift the burden and create openings.
And these how questions are also a great way to say no without actually saying no, right?
Yeah, a really elegant way. They push the other side to find alternatives, often your alternatives, without you having to reject them directly.
Like the consultant example.
Perfect. Owed money, but asked to do more work first. Instead of refusing, she asks calmly, I'd love to help, but how am I supposed to do that given the outstanding invoice?
Brilliant. Leaves the client nowhere to go but solve her problem.
And she got paid in 48 hours. It flips the script on who owns the problem.
Calibrated questions can also smoke out those hidden players, right? The level 2 people.
Yeah, the people behind the table. The ones not in the room, but who can influence or kill the deal. A spouse, a boss, another department.
The potential deal killers.
It only takes one. So asking things like, how will this affect the finance team? Or how does your boss feel about this approach? Can uncover those hidden stakeholders and their concerns. You need to know who else has a stake.
Makes sense. And then there's the rule of 3 for testing commitment.
Right. To make sure a yes is real, not counterfeit. Get them to agree to the same core thing 3 times in the conversation, using a mix of calibrated questions. So how would that look in practice? Summaries. So we're agreed on X, Y, and Z. Or labels. It seems like you're comfortable with this path.
Why 3 times?
Because, as the book says, it's really hard to repeatedly lie or fake conviction. The mental effort is too high. If you get 3 genuine agreements, you can be pretty confident they're really on board.
Okay, builds confidence in the yes.
So we've covered understanding, guiding. But eventually, most negotiations get down to the brass tacks, haggling over price, terms, the details.
The actual bargaining.
But even here, remember the core idea. Never split the difference. That analogy of one black shoe, one brown shoe.
Yeah, compromise leading to the worst outcome for everyone.
Right. Splitting the difference often avoids the hard, creative work needed to find better solutions. Real breakthroughs often come after some risk, annoyance, confusion, and conflict. Don't shy away from that messy part.
Embrace the discomfort. What about deadlines?
Deadlines. Often self-inflicted figments of our imagination, the book says. They pressure us into bad deals.
The mantra is, no deal is better than a bad deal. Patience gives you leverage, like the FBI waiting till Thursday or Friday in Haiti.
Because the kidnappers wanted their weekend party money.
Exactly. Their self-imposed deadline weakened their position. Don't let your own internal clock be your enemy.
And then there's the F word. Fairness.
Yes, the F word. Paradoxically, it's the most powerful word in negotiations.
Why, paradoxically?
Because people will blow up a perfectly rational deal if they feel it's unfair, even if it costs them. Think of those monkeys rejecting cucumbers when the other guy gets grapes.
Right, the unfairness reaction.
Or Iran enduring sanctions for decades over perceived historical unfairness. Fairness trumps pure logic.
So if someone says, we just want what's fair.
The suggested response is disarming. Okay, I apologize. Let's stop everything and go back to where I started treating you unfairly, and we'll fix it.
Whoa. Puts it right back on them.
Exactly. It acknowledges their feeling, disarms them, and forces them to define what fair actually means to them, which is incredibly valuable information for you. Clever. Yeah. And you can also bend their reality using prospect theory.
Yeah, circling back to that, remember, people want sure things, and they fear losses more than they value equivalent gains.
Loss aversion again.
Right. The perceived value of something, like $20, changes dramatically based on the frame. Is it a gain or avoiding a loss? Is it fair compared to others? Understanding this lets you frame your offers to resonate more powerfully. Frame gains as avoiding losses.
Okay, what about actually setting a price? Who goes first?
The book advises, counterintuitively, let the other guy go first most of the time.
Why? Seems like giving up control.
Because you might get lucky. They might offer more than you were even hoping for. Avoids the winner's curse where you bid too high. You get crucial info about their range first.
Anchoring. Let them anchor first.
Exactly. But if you have to go first,
then use a bolstering range. Your real target is the low end, but you state a range with a more ambitious high end. If you want a $100 K, maybe offer a range of $100K to $120K.
Right.
Research shows people using ranges, especially bolstering ones, get higher results, like in salary negotiations. It anchors them higher. Anchors high, then you can negotiate down towards your real target.
Right. And after anchoring, pivot to non-monetary terms. Things that are low cost for them, but high value for you, like Voss getting free magazine cover advertising for doing training at a discount. Find that hidden non-cash value.
Creative value exchange.
Okay, now for the mechanics. The Ackerman system. The FBI's step-by-step bargaining method for getting the best price.
How does it work?
Step 1, start with an extreme anchor, like 65% of your target price. Shocks them a bit, resets their expectations.
Okay, lowball anchor.
Then raise your offer progressively, maybe to 85%, then 95%, then finally 100% of your target. And this is key, use decreasing increments each time and use non-round numbers.
Decreasing raises in weird numbers. Why?
Decreasing increment signals you're reaching your limit. Non-round numbers sound calculated and precise, like you've squeezed out every possible penny, makes them feel like they've pushed you as far you can go.
Like the Toyota 4Runner example.
Perfect illustration. Sticker was $36K, Voss wanted $30. Use the Ackerman steps, extreme anchor, then 85%, 95% final offer. His last increment was some weird number like $1,829.
And the salesman's reaction.
Wow. $1,829. You seem very precise. You must be an accountant. That's the effect. Makes them feel they got everything possible.
The precision makes the final offer seem absolute.
Exactly. The book also touches on 3 bargaining styles: accommodators, assertives, and analysts. Knowing who you're dealing with helps.
Briefly, what are they?
Accommodators are relationship-focused, might hide objections. Assertives are direct, time-focused, need to feel respected. Analysts are methodical, need data, can be slow.
So you tailor your approach. Use more labels with assertives, more data with analysts.
Exactly. Even an assertive like Voss learned to soften his tone, use questions and labels more. It's about adapting.
And finally, what about punching back?
Last resort. It's not about anger, which just makes things worse. It's about setting firm boundaries, tough love, but focusing on the issue, not the person.
Keeping it about the problem.
And always, always be willing to walk away. Never be needy for a deal. That detachment gives you power.
Right. No deal is better than a bad deal.
Okay, now for the really advanced stuff. This is where the game truly changes. Finding black swans.
The unknown unknowns.
Exactly. Those hidden and unexpected pieces of information whose unearthing has game-changing effects. Like discovering actual black swans shattered the belief that all swans were white.
Changes your whole worldview. Nassim Taleb concept, right?
Yeah, Taleb popularized it. Events or knowledge that sit outside our regular expectations and therefore cannot be predicted. Like Pearl Harbor or 9/11. The signs might have been there, but nobody connected the dots beforehand.
So in negotiation, what's a black swan?
Could be anything that fundamentally changes the landscape. Your counterpart secretly wants the deal to fail because they're joining a competitor. Or they have a hidden personal reason driving them that has nothing to do with the deal itself.
Game-changing intel.
The challenge is, most people don't know how to even look for them, what questions to ask. Voss uses Steve Jobs as an example. Jobs didn't ask us if we wanted an iPad.
He uncovered our need, a need we didn't know we had.
Exactly. He found a black swan about consumer desire.
So finding them requires a different mindset.
Totally. You have to consciously change your mindset. Stop trying to verify what you expect to find. Instead, open yourself up to the factual reality that is in front of you, even if it's weird or unexpected.
Be radically open
Because what you don't know can kill you or your deal. You have to actively hunt for those hidden pieces.
And leverage plays into this.
Big time. Leverage isn't static, it's a fluid that sloshes between the parties. Whoever has more to lose if the deal collapses has less leverage.
So you gain leverage
by persuading your counterpart they have something real to lose if the deal falls through. It's about shaping their perception of risk and loss, making them feel the pain of not doing the deal.
Where do you find these black swans?
Often in the other side's religion, their deep worldview, hopes, dreams, fears, what really motivates them beyond the surface issues.
Like the Watson standoff example.
Powerful example. The negotiator learned Watson was deeply religious. By using language and timing tied to Watson's faith the dawn of the third day, they reached him on a level logic couldn't touch. That deep understanding of his religion was the key.
Showing they truly heard him, not just his demands.
The book also says if your counterpart seems crazy or totally irrational,
don't dismiss them.
No, that's often the best moment for discovering black swans. Their craziness might be because they have bad information or hidden constraints.
Like the Coca-Cola guy who'd lost internal influence.
Right, or truly hidden dark interests like William Griffin wanting suicide by cop. Those moments of irrationality were signals to dig deeper, ask more questions, not walk away.
And getting FaceTime helps uncover this.
Hugely important. Emails hide so much. That client with the Coke contact couldn't figure him out until they had dinner. Then he learned the guy was the wrong person to deal with a critical black swan.
Same with the MBA student and the real estate deal.
Yeah, asking, it seems like you're under some kind of pressure, led to uncovering a hidden time crunch and a massive $200K price drop. You find these things through real personal connection, not just emails.
So wrapping this all up, what's the big takeaway from this deep dive into never split the difference? How does it help us get what we want?
It's a huge paradigm shift, isn't it? Negotiation isn't a fight. It's not a battle of logic. It's a psychological investigation. It's a process of discovery.
Leveraging human psychology, emotions, not just facts and figures.
And understanding that what you don't know, those hidden black swans, can either sink you or, if you actively look for them, become your greatest advantage.
But putting this into practice, using your voice strategically, mirroring, labeling, tactical empathy, embracing, no, hunting black swans, it takes real work.
Right. Conscious effort. Deliberate practice, and being willing to get a little uncomfortable sometimes. The book really pushes you to embrace regular, thoughtful conflict as the foundation for effective negotiation and, frankly, for life.
And remembering the key insight. Your counterpart isn't the problem. The unsolved issue is. Focus there, and breakthroughs can happen.
So the message is, go forth and connect. Listen deeply, not just to reply, but to truly understand. Influence not by forcing your way, but by guiding.
Start small.
Yeah, start small. Sprinkle these techniques into your everyday chats with your boss, partner, kids, the person at the coffee shop. You might be genuinely surprised by the creative, positive outcomes you get when you truly listen and seek to understand, even or especially when it feels counterintuitive.
So the final thought for you, the listener. What conversations in your life could you transform by applying these ideas, by truly listening, understanding the music and dance behind the words? Reflect on that. Observe what happens when you put these powerful principles into practice. Your world and your ability to navigate it might just profoundly shift.